afternoon and welcome to the second half of Power Lunch. Joining me in the studio is John Parks, the non-executive chairman of African Eagle Resources. Now, the company listed this morning on the ALTX, but is already listed on AIM, the alternative investment market in London. So this is a secondary listing. And an exciting time. Tell us a bit about why you've chosen to list on the ALTX as a secondary listing.
Secondary listings, dual listings, are becoming reasonably common amongst resource companies now, particularly those listed on AIM and those in Australia. What we've found, particularly looking at the different alternative investment markets that we could have listed on, is that Johannesburg has a very long history and an involvement in Africa and a very clear and real understanding of the nature of our business, which is exploration rather than production.
But historically, South African investors have been quite wary of the risk of exploration companies.
It's turning around quite a lot, and I think you're going to start to see other companies like ourselves starting to look at what we've done here and come to South Africa.
Now, you have exclusively assets up in the rest of Africa, predominantly Mozambique, Tanzania, and Zambia, rather. Sorry. Tell me a bit about you plan to have 2 or more projects in production within 3 to 5 years. So tell me a bit about the Mkushi Copper project in Zambia. That's one of the ones you hope to have active.
Very much so. Mkushi it was actually operated as a copper mine back in the 70s by an Italian consortium. And during that period, you had both the nationalisation of the copper industry in Zambia and very low copper prices. So the Italians literally walked away. We've taken out a license there with the full recognition of the Zambian government. We've done quite a lot of work looking to reproduce the results that ZCCM had done on the project, which showed that there could be as much as 30 million tonnes of 1.5% copper in the immediate area of the old open pit.
Now, it's outside the copper belt in Zambia, am I right?
It is, and interestingly, there's a tremendous amount of interest in Zambia by government and others to get projects up and off the ground away from the traditional copper belt.
And 1.5% copper concentration is pretty good. I think they're
It is these days. I mean, one of the reasons nobody's gone back and looked at it is that Zambian copper traditionally was mined in the 2.5% to 4% range. 1.5 back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s really didn't cut it, but it does today.
Right, particularly with the higher copper prices.
Oh, very much so.
Looking at the gold project from Miyabi in Tanzania, tell us a bit about that project.
Miyabi's a 500,000 ounce JORC SAMREC compliant resource project.
JORC, just for the...
Oh, sorry, JORC is the Joint Ore Reserves Committee in Australia. It's a standard that applies to the level of accuracy that goes into the reserve and the resource calculation. SAMREC is very, very similar.
Right, it's the South African version.
Exactly. We found this, it's in the Lake Victoria gold fields where some 40 to 50 million ounces of gold has been discovered in the last 10 years. We've brought in a former South African partner in Randgold. And Randgold are now in a position where they're earning 51% of that project and doing a lot of work as we speak.
So that's traditionally your model. You are an exploration company and you partner with other companies to develop the assets.
Correct.
What kind of percentages do you hold in Mkushi?
Mkushi and Miyabi will end up with 49% of those carried through to a feasibility study.
Okay.
On other projects in other parts of the world where we didn't feel that we could do enough work to earn our 49%, we've accepted 30-35% with other joint venture partners.
Right. Now, in the selection of the areas of Africa in which you're operating, Zambia, Tanzania, and Mozambique, what was the rationale for choosing those particular countries?
For Tanzania particularly, African Eagle, the 3 of the directors, myself, Mark Parker, and Chris Davis, have been involved in Tanzania since 1987. I've been there with Clough, I've been there with Samax Resources, and now with African Eagle. Zambia, we actually acquired a small unlisted Australian company that had Zambian assets back in 2003.
Okay. So that was kind of something.
Pretty much, it's where we know. We know those countries very well. We know the people there and have done for a long time.
And you're confident in terms of the various types of risks that you get exposed to when operating in these countries. You're confident that these are relatively stable environments that you can act in?
Very much so. All 3 countries have had brand new mining legislation in the last 10 years. security of tenure in our business is the key, and we believe we have that in all three of those countries.
Okay. Now, the UK listing, I noticed the last time I checked today, was trading at 13.25 pence, which works out to a shade under the £2 that it's trading at on the JSE. What's to what you attribute that's different?
We had pretty much a meltdown last week in all resources, as you know.
Yes.
I checked it just before I came into the studio, and we're up over 14.
Okay, all right. I'd only checked it a few hours ago.
That's partly the news, I think, of the Altex commencement of trading this morning.
Now, where do you see your share price going? I see you gave us an optimistic look with a target price of 40p. So
I didn't actually write that. That was a commissioned piece of research. Okay. But no, we feel that and London hasn't fully recognised the value of part shares in a number of assets.
Right.
It's one of the things that came out very strongly in talking to the investment community here in South Africa, that they understand that if you have shares in a number of projects, you're actually hedged against a number of the risks of the business.
Right.
We're in different commodities, we're in different countries, we're with projects that are at different stages of development, and that's got real value.
Traditionally, exploration companies are quite high risk, and a lot of the projects don't pan out. So this is one of your strategies for mitigating that risk.
Very much so. We operate a classic pyramid of exploration projects. We have two that you've mentioned that are very late stage. We have at least another 3 which are advanced projects.
Yes.
And behind that, probably as many as 35, 40 other projects.
Okay.
And not all of those are going to make it.
Right. Well, that's the risk we're taking.
Yeah, absolutely.
The capital raising exercise here, you raised 104 million, and that's going to go towards working capital and funding the exploration. So you 88 million of South African investors and another 15 in the UK. What percentage of ownership is held here in South Africa?
At the moment, we actually have 22% of our register as of 9 o'clock this morning is registered in South Africa, but probably closer to 30% is actually held by South Africans, because as you know, certain institutions and individuals can invest by themselves overseas.
What are the big South African institutions that have taken this share?
Standard is the biggest investor here. Peregrine have taken positions, and a number of others that are lesser percentages.
Right. Looking at the plan of the listing, you have diluted the holdings. I think you went from 157 to 204 million shares. How do the investors feel about the dilution?
The share price opened this morning with the new number of shares at a penny higher than it was with the old number of shares. I'm not sure that the dust has settled on that yet, but when you start to look at the fact that the new shares that came with cash that represent that amount of market capitalisation as well. So,
right.
Yeah.
So you feel pretty
I'm fairly sanguine about the whole thing today.
You yourself hold a percentage of the company? So.
I have about 3% of the company.
Okay. What percentage do directors hold, all told?
All told, after the listing this morning, around 4.85%.
Okay. And then there's a share option scheme, a share incentivizing scheme that can hold a maximum of 10%. Is that?
It's not. We're allowed under AIM regulations to hold 10% of shares in a plan. We only actually hold around 5% in the plan.
Okay.
But the key thing there, and I think it's important that I mention this, is that plan goes all the way down through the company to everybody that works for the company above the level, effectively, of a casual labourer.
Okay. To an investor, South African investor, thinking about taking this on and worrying about the risk, because, as I said, it is essentially a risky business, exploration.
Yep.
What would you say to that investor?
I'd say that what you're looking at here is a very competent management team that's operated in Africa. We've done it before. I've been involved in very successful companies, so have the other members of our team. We're in commodities that the world needs. I mean, whatever happens with short term in the markets, there's still 1 billion Chinese housewives who want a washing machine.
Right.
And if you've got a company that has got, as I said, the advanced projects that are going into feasibility study, we've got advanced exploration, which will now go into pre-feasibility. We've got a backlog of projects behind us, out of which 4 or 5 or 6 others will come. then what you're looking at in, as I say, about 3 to 5 years, is shares in what we hope will be 4 or 5 operating companies generating revenue.
Okay,
That's what you're buying.
So that's what we're buying, is the future revenue stream.
Yes.
This is
Future music.
John Parks, the non-executive chairman of African Eagle Resources. The share listed today on the OLTEX, and as John indicates, has been trading fairly well. It's currently at around 2 rand.